we got to watch out for this creep. And that's one thing that's also concerning about the financial collapse of financial currencies is that it's all about creep. It's all about taking more control. And so what this ultimately ends in is the mark of the beast, right? In Revelation is where this ultimately ends in. Whether we're seeing it right now, honestly, I don't really know, because it talks about, mark in the wrist, mark in the forehead. What that represents, I don't know, but that's where this is going. We can see that creep. We can see that movement toward complete control of our lives.
One of the interesting things about mark of the beast, since we jumped into that topic, when you have a mark on the forehead, it is a symbol of the kingdom that you're attached to. A mark in the hand is a symbol of a promise that you're attached to. So now think of it this way. There are two kingdoms fighting. We know which one will win, God's. And we know which one will lose, Satan's. Satan's plan is to put everybody in bondage. And he's doing that through the one world government is one of his ways. Now, knowing that, understanding that, the mark of the beast, whether it's a physical mark, whether it's a tattoo with a barcode, whether it's a chip that's been inserted in your hand, it's a voluntary or involuntary connection to that kingdom, right? And there's a point in time where we're going to have to defect so that we can stay in the kingdom of God. We have to live in the world, but we don't have to be of it.
Amen.
And so that's for me, my most important thing in my family's future is making sure that we stay close to God, because it doesn't matter the chaos going around us. We're told and commanded to be still so that we can feel peace. And we're commanded to follow Christ. And if we're following Christ, we will stand in holy places. And that's being still. Like, you don't have to subscribe to all the craziness. You don't have to subscribe to all the insanity. Like, I look at Joseph of the Old Testament. He had the interpretation given to him for the Pharaoh's dream of 7 years of tons and tons of food, and then 7 years of famine that's worse than anyone's seen. And so he told the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh's like, okay, you're in charge. Get us organized. Get the food and everything we need for the bad 7 years. Let's get it now. And we've been doing that most of our lives, trying to live by that same type of motto. We've gone through, in my family, horrible time for the last 3.5, 4 years. And guess what? We've been using our food storage. Everyone buys food storage thinking, I'm not going to use it for years. We buy our food storage knowing we're going to use it tomorrow.
Probably.
Right? It's a rotating system. Like, new goes to the back, the old goes to the front, and we keep using it. And it's a smarter way of life so that I'm not worried about where the next meal is coming from.
Yeah, and of course, what comes to mind is if you're prepared, you won't fear, right? Shall not fear. And so, one thing I want to make sure we don't leave out, we don't forget when we're talking about these concerns is some solutions, how we prepare ourselves for this, right? We don't want to just say, oh, here's the things we're worried about. Good luck. I think the three of us, we figured out what we're doing or how we can better prepare ourselves for these. We can't be 100% prepared in most cases, especially, grid down. We can be minimally prepared, but like we had mentioned before, is live right now how you would live without those things. Like me still watching VHS tapes, right? For a stupid example. But for financial, collapse, since that's kind of the topic we're on right now, is my recommendation as a solution is become your own bank. Separate yourself from the financial system as much as you can, because you can participate. I mean, you can participate, like you were saying, Scott, we don't want to participate in the mark of the beast, which means we have to be ready now so that we aren't compelled to be forced into that. Or actually it will be like, yes, please save us. Give me the mark so I can eat, right? We don't want to put ourselves in that situation. So we need to prepare now so that we can say, no, thank you. We are prepared. We'll go off, live in the wilderness, whatever, to not participate in this system. So obviously food storage, like you're saying, Scott, financially, yes, we can participate, but the word that comes to mind for me is hedge. We have to hedge our bets. We have to hedge our investments. We have to be prepared for when things turn the other way, and make that decision of when, okay, I'm heavily invested in the financial markets. I got to know when to get out. And that's super difficult.
And also be okay losing it all.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's where hedging comes in.
Right? That's what like if you've got all of your money in the market, or all your eggs in one basket, it's probably the easier term. If you've got all of your eggs in one basket and that basket gets yanked away, are you okay? Or is that going to destroy you? Not just physically, financially, and everything else, like mentally and emotionally, spiritually. Are you okay?
Yeah, I think we all know how hard it is to not have money and be in that situation every day for weeks and months on end. Yeah, we all know that. We've all been there.
Right. I still have my EBT card from back when I needed to have an EBT card.
Really? As kind of a memento?
It's my memento. It reminds me of where I come from, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why we do what we do. I mean, going through that kind of a trial, going through the financial fire, going through the economic fire of a household without, it hardens you against those challenges in the future. So it's not so difficult, right? And hardens meaning strengthens. Like, it strengthens you for the future. And it's like, knowing that it's a cycle and we all go through it multiple times, it prepares us for the next. And we're more resilient for the next. And that's why we prepare as best we can with what we have. So whatever your financial situation is, whatever your current life situation is, for you that are listening, like, know that you're not alone in it, and things will change. It can go better and it can go worse, but that's not the end of you. That's not the end of your story. Your story will go on, and those things that you're going through now and in the future will help you rise. And will help you become better if you let it and if you work with it.
Yeah, here's something that's been on my mind is that, I always say, look to the past, prepare for the future. And so just like you're saying with Joseph, I think civilizations, people, even our grandparents who relied on their own gardens, who relied on their own farming in their own communities, they really relied on prayer. They relied on God to give them the rain they need, save their crops, like the early church here in Salt Lake in Utah, where the crickets were devouring the crops. They relied on their Heavenly Father to save them. What are we relying on? We're relying on our next paycheck. We're relying on the food security, food system, the transportation system, the supply chain, which we'll talk about next. But are we relying on God enough? Or are we relying on man? Whereas if we're planting our own crops, I mean, that's about as close as you can get to relying on God, I think, right? We need the rain. I need to find the fertilizer. I gotta fertilize my crops. Those types of things. And so again, looking to the past and preparing for that, living a more simple lifestyle, making those changes now is the biggest things on my mind is, at the moment.
Yeah, let me share my screen again real quick. And this is something that goes right along with what you're talking about. This is a screen share on Facebook again, and we'll share this on our Facebook as well for those of you who are listening so you can read this. But one of the companies we actually just got, we really support or behind is called My Patriot Supply. They have a great resources there and availability, and we got some resources available, links in on our website. Sorry, and they put out a link here that was a recent thing by Charles Schwab. Pardon me, not Charles Schwab. Klaus Schwab.
Klaus Schwab.
They were probably related. It says here, and I'll read this, and you can go and read it on our Facebook page when we share it. It says, at the World Government Summit yesterday, Klaus Schwab said, history is truly at a turning point with economic instability, conflict between major global powers, and the coming fourth industrial revolution. There will be systemic and structural changes, and that global supply chains, energy, and food systems will be deeply affected. Another video I watched recently was the End of Nations over at the High Wire, and we'll share that too. He basically goes through the point where in the next few years, we may have to go back to those more simple times, those more simple ways of living. where we're not relying on the ability to just place an order online and have it shipped to our house, where we actually have to kind of coordinate with our community and find out who's a carpenter and who's an electrician, and work together in our communities, because we may not have that kind of opportunity in our communities. But I want to just, I want to say one more thing, and then I'll let you turn back over to you guys. But I was just thinking this last couple of weeks as we've been talking about preparing and getting your food storage and getting everything ready for 3-month supplies, 90-day supplies, 1-week supplies, all these things. And I thought to myself, what is the single mom or dad out there, or the single person, or the person who's just barely scraping by? Maybe they're married and they have several kids and they just they're barely scraping by. What do? And it goes back to what we were talking about right before I had the screen share, is rely on God. If you get good with God and you get strong with God, and he'll guide you and direct you. One of the crazy things that I've had in my life happen several times is that there's been I had situations where I was struggling. I didn't have it. I didn't have money. I didn't have what I needed I had kids to feed, and I didn't have it. And I would pray and I'd say, God, you know what we need. And I can't do it. And somebody knock on the door with a bag of food, or I'd be told to go visit so-and-so, and we go visit their house, and they're like, hey, why don't you come in for dinner? And before I know it, my family's fed. I get what I need. I get a check in the mail from somebody who felt prompted to send me a check for some money. I mean, the reality of God giving us and being aware of what our needs is so real to me. I can't deny it, number one, and nobody will convince me that it doesn't work, that God's not part of this whole process. So if you're struggling, like, I don't have money, I don't have what I need, get good with God, and he'll guide you and direct you. He'll lead you paths. He'll take you where you need to go. He'll introduce you to people that do have enough and plenty and can share and will share. So if you're out there struggling, get good with God, and he'll guide and direct you. And so that's my 2 cents.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
Get over to the food pantries. Like, there are so many neat resources around that you can find ways to get what you need now, but also it'll help you expand for the future. If you need to go to multiple food pantries to get stuff, do it. Get with, WIC or the other different services that are available to your town, like to your city, to get the resources to help your family. And my favorite, potatoes. You can grow a ton of potatoes in 5-gallon buckets. Go to the store, buy some potatoes, put them in a dark place, let them start sprouting, cut them into fourths if you can, right? And then make sure you dry those out for a few days. And guess what? Now you're ready to start growing potatoes. Taters, right? And potatoes, like, I'm from Idaho. You know what saved my family year after year after year? Like, generationally? Potatoes. Like, my first grandparents, well, on the Stalling side, my great grandmother, she left her husband and took her 3 kids and moved into a hole that she dug out of the side of a hill. And they planted potatoes on the top of the hill. And that's how they survived, in a dugout. So cool. They put, as they could get it, they would put more and more wood in the sides of that dugout until it was more structurally sound, and they had a wall, and then they built a cabin later as the boys got older. And that is my heritage. Like, potatoes saved us. And when my dad was struggling financially, and my mom was struggling with work and health, you know what saved us? Potatoes. We had boxes, like crates of potatoes in the basement. And my dad and my mom, like, we'd do a garden every year, and we had our food storage and everything else. But, like, my grandpa and grandma, every time they'd come visit from Idaho, guess what they'd bring?
Potatoes.
Big old bag of potatoes.
60 pounds of potatoes, 2 30-pound bags. Like, that's saved us time after time. Like, and potatoes are cheap. So if you don't have anything else to do, if you live in an apartment, but you can get a bag of potatoes, eat half and put the other half out, like, put them in a dark place, root them. Then once they're rooted, cut them up. Like, there's YouTube videos that explain how to do this process, and just go put them in a 5-gallon bucket with some soil, and they'll grow. Water them and they'll grow, and you'll have too many potatoes later on. You won't know what to do with all the potatoes you could get out of that. And then you take some, set them aside, do the same thing. And guess what? Wintertime, you can grow them inside. Get a grow light on top of them. Like you can grow them pretty much anywhere. They're potatoes. They're robust. They're tough. They're awesome. I